Chris B. And today I want to help you to do exceedingly well in all your tests. Okay? So today I want to tell you, well, why is test taking important? Test taking is important because it's the immediate barrier between the learning of information that you've never known before and demonstrating the information on a standardized test. So essentially, these tests are going to be the keys to your future because you have to demonstrate the comprehension that you have of information that's basically forced into your mind. Tests are technically going to be one of your hardest hurdles that you have to get over. But today I want to help you to have one more piece to the puzzle so that you can be successful and you can beat school. So let's get started. First, let's walk through the anatomy of a test. First, we go through our overview and look through, where we look through our test to determine if we have anything within our test that will help us, that will help guide us to how we want to go about our test. Next, we want to read the directions. Oftentimes, you find little nuggets and little guiding bits of information within a direction. So you definitely want to make sure that you don't skip reading the directions. Next, we'll go through whether we want to start from the beginning of our test or maybe if we want to start at the end of our test. The choice is ours. But first, once we've looked through our test and read the directions, we can determine whether we want to start from the beginning or the end. Then we want to go through reading each and every one of our questions very carefully in order for us to answer our questions. And we want to write clues above our questions with our answers being covered so that we aren't biased by what we see on the paper. And we want to go through using questions written down within our test to answer other questions. Now, after that, you're going to review your test, make sure everything's A-OK with your test, and we're going to check our Scantron, and then that'll be it. That'll be your test. So let's go ahead and get into it in depth. So again, our first thing is overview and look through. Overview and look through. Do not judge a book by its cover. Some tests have a significant number of pages, but you don't want to overreact to this. This is going to be your confidence builder when it comes to taking your test. You cannot look at your test and let it overtake you. You have to own it right here, right now. Build that confidence. So first, we'll look at how many pages we have within our test. The number of the pages that you have will dictate how much time that you can spend on each page. So you want to look at how many questions do you have throughout your test? Do you have 20? Do you have 50? Do you have 100? Based upon how many questions you have, it's going to dictate again how much time that you have, how much time that you're able to spend on each question. So you really want to pay attention to that. Now, I mentioned looking for those bits and pieces of goodies throughout your test. I call it looking for gold. So when you're looking for gold, you want to look for any bonus questions, any extra questions, formula sheets, diagrams, illustrations, anything that's going to help you to answer any question you have on your test. How much harder would it be for you to go through your test? For instance, let's say that you have a math test. You're going through your math test and you have all of these different formulas and equations that you want to be able to remember, but you can't quite remember them. I mean, let's say if you have 20 or 30 equations that you have to remember. How much easier is it if you have a page within your test that has all of that information provided for you by your professor versus you trying to just solely depend on your memory for that information? If it's given to you, use it. Also, with bonus questions, oftentimes people don't look at the back page of their test. That's why when you do an overview and look through, you can look through all of the pages on your test and you can determine, okay, I need to make sure that I answer the back page of my test as well before I turn my test in. And again, your diagrams and your illustrations, some of your questions are going to refer to the diagrams and illustrations. So you need that information in order to answer your questions. Okay? So reading the directions is going to be our next step. Now, reading the directions, I think of it as the tour guide. And what does your tour guide do? Your tour guide is going to help you to get to your destination. It's going to help you to navigate through rough terrain, and it's going to help you find little bits and pieces of hidden treasure along the way. Okay? But ultimately, your tour guide is going to help you to get to your destination. So it is very, very, very pivotal that you read through the directions very carefully. I oftentimes have students that will go through my tests and they won't even read the directions. What if I put in the directions, you will receive extra credit if you initial at the bottom corner of the first page of the test. If you skip those directions, you miss out on those points. Also, too, your directions are going to help you to find out what lies within your test. For instance, maybe you have different types of questions. Maybe you have matching questions. Maybe you have multiple choice. Maybe you have multiple questions. With multiple questions, there are more than one answer that may apply. The directions will help you to figure out what's in your test. You don't want to put one answer for a question when multiple answers apply for the question. So you want to make sure that you focus on what your directions are telling you. So next, we're going to go to our start of our test. We've read the directions now. We've figured out what types of questions, what types of things lie within our test. Now we want to figure out, are we going to start from the beginning of our test, or are we going to start from the ending of our test? So we look at our first question and our first few questions, and we say, what's the difficulty of these questions? Do they have a higher difficulty than those questions at the back? Now, I would advise personally starting at the higher level of ease type questions, because again, you want to continue to build your confidence. You don't want to devour the elephant in one whole chunk. You want to take it a bit by bit, piece by piece. You want to do it that way. And you don't want to burn out when you're answering questions. You want to have a stair-step mentality where you can do a little bit here. It doesn't require as much energy. Then you want to go to the next step and build it and build up. And you'll find that as you're going through your test, again, your confidence is going to be major. We reached our first question. So now we want to make sure that we cover our answer choices with our hand, Scantron, or any scratch paper that we've been given. And while we do that, we want to read our question very carefully and look for the subject of our question. Once we find it, we circle it, star or underline it, and then we write above the subject anything that pertains to that subject. Any personal experiences, any analogies, any acronyms, any sayings, anything that the professor is giving you in class, you want to write it above the question. And again, write any and everything that you can think of as it pertains to the subject of this question. So now, once we've done that, we want to uncover our answer choices. And we want to determine if any of our answer choices relate to the information that we have written above the question. Now, the answer choice that best relates to the information that we've written above the question is going to be the answer choice that we want to choose. In the case that you have more than one answer choice that applies to the information that you have written above the question, you want to use the process of elimination to choose the best answer. So now when it comes to those tougher questions that we need more help on, we wanted to go back and mark those questions appropriately, circle them. So when we skip them, we can come back to those questions and we can use what we have, the next topic that we're discussing, using what we have to get answers that we need. So with this topic, again, this focuses on the detail that we've written above every single question. We want to use that so that we can answer other questions. Also, with using what you have to get answers that you need, don't forget about the other hidden treasures that we mentioned early on. Our formula sheets, our diagrams, our illustrations, all of those things help us to gain the answers that we need. So we do not want to forget about it. Now, as we finish that, we next move into the reviewing part of our test. So we review our test 3 total times. So on the first review of our test, we're reading through and we're looking for any questions that were worded badly or any questions that we thought the answer wasn't given in the answer choices. And we want to mark those accordingly and write those on the back of our test or on the back of our Scantron sheet where there's space provided. Or if your professor allows it, you can raise your hand and mention it to the professor and they may correct it accordingly. Now, as you go on reviewing your test for the first time, you want to re-answer every single question. Again, answer every single question again. I can't tell you how many times I've gone through my test and I've read a question and I've put a completely different answer. So you want to make sure that you have written the correct answer for every single question. That will conclude your first time reviewing your test. For the second time reviewing your test, you're going to want to compare the answers that you have on your test sheet to the answers that you have on your Scantron. You want to make sure that they correspond with each other. That will conclude your second review of your test. For your third review of your test, you're going to solely look through your Scantron. Now, you want to make sure that you haven't marked or bubbled 2 answers for one question that only has one answer, or you want to make sure that you've marked the appropriate number of answers for that question based upon your directions. And you also want to make sure that you have every answer choice bubbled in, because if you have one space between separate questions, it may be the difference between a failing grade and a passing grade. All right, so now that we're ready to turn our tests in, we want to make sure that we are going to tell our professor about those questions that we thought were incorrectly worded or questions that we thought were just flat out wrong. Make sure that they are aware of this as you're turning in your test. Now, once you walk out of your test, if you did really, really bad, make sure that you get a pen and paper and you write down every single question and answer that you can remember from the test, because you may see it again on any following tests or any cumulative finals. So you want to have that as a study guide to be able to do the best you can do on the following tests. After that, whether you've done really well or really bad, you're going to want to check your grade and then go to your professor's office and figure out why the answers that were marked incorrectly are wrong. Even questions that you have some uncertainty about, you want to clear any misunderstandings up. Again, because you may see those same questions on any other test that the professor provides. Also, too, if you do this, the professor knows that you have some concern about your grade. And so that'll put you in good light when it comes to you maybe needing a point here or there. It could be the difference between a failing grade and a passing grade. As you're going through your test questions with your professor, make sure that, again, you look through and look for any questions that weren't worded the best, because there may be more. So you may have the opportunity to not only get yourself extra points back, but you may have the opportunity to get your entire class points back. So that's a huge bonus. So now that will conclude your entire test. I just want to say thank you to each and every one of you all for watching us. Again, please follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Again, we're here on YouTube, as you can see, And you can check out our website at beschoolcollege.com. And please click the subscribe button below. We love, love, love subscribers. So again, have a great day. Be school.